Young heard the first blast before he saw it. It rolled through Icarus' base like a heavy fist. The lights flickered. Dust fell from the ceiling. Somewhere down the hall, people screamed. Then the sound was cut off by gunfire. He ran with Scott at his side. Boots hit metal. Men in civilian jackets shoved past them with wide eyes. Someone yelled that the Lucian Alliance was inside the perimeter. Young rounded a corner and saw it. The Stargate room was chaos. Soldiers were behind cover. Alliance fighters were pushing in, fast and hungry, firing at anything that moved. The gate itself stood like a tall ring of stone and metal, humming with power it should not have had. The kawoosh had already happened. The blue event horizon was there. Then it changed. Not fully. It was still blue, but the light looked wrong, like something darker was behind it, like the gate was a door, and someone on the other side was pulling on it. Scott raised his rifle. "Sir!" "Hold!" Young snapped, because the gate was doing something he had never seen. A shape stepped out. One man. Tall, calm, dark hair, clothes that looked like they belonged in a fight, not on a base. No team patch. No gun. No helmet. His eyes moved once across the room. Left. Right. High corner. Low corner. He read the whole scene like it was a map. A Lucian fighter shouted something in panic and fired. The stranger moved. It was not a dive, not a scramble. It was a clean step, like he was already standing where he needed to be. The bullets hit the floor where he had been. Another burst came. The man turned his shoulder and the shots missed by inches. Then the shadows under the Lucian fighter's feet rose. Young's brain tried to name it. Smoke. Cable. A trick of the light. But it was a hand. Black and thick, like it was made from the absence of light. It grabbed the Lucian's ankle. Another hand rose and grabbed his wrist. The man screamed and fell. His rifle clattered away. "Holy," Scott breathed. The stranger crossed the distance in seconds, not sprinting. Just there. He tapped the Lucian's neck once, and the man went still. Two more Lucians rushed him. One swung a knife. The stranger caught the wrist, twisted, and the knife fell. His other hand struck the man's chest. The fighter flew back and hit a console hard enough to crack plastic. The last one tried to fire point blank. A black figure stepped between them. It looked like a soldier made of shadow. Broad shoulders, helmet shape, no face. It took the bullets and did not move. The rounds sank into darkness and vanished. The Lucian fighter froze. His gun shook. The stranger stared at him. His voice was low, not loud, not angry. "Stop!" The Lucian did not stop. He screamed and kept firing. The shadow soldier's arm moved once, a single backhand. The Lucian hit the wall and slid down, blinking like he could not understand what just happened. Young lifted his pistol anyway. His men did too. The Lucian still alive did the same. Everyone was aiming at someone. The stranger looked at the guns pointed at him and did not flinch. His expression did not change. His eyes were tired in a way Young recognized from people who had seen too much. Another explosion hit the base. The whole room shook. A shower of sparks rained from the ceiling. "Dialing sequence is unstable," someone yelled at the control station. "We're losing power." Rush's voice cut through the noise from across the room, sharp and urgent. "If we don't connect now, we lose the ship." Young's stomach tightened. Destiny. The only lifeline. The only plan. "Evacuate," Young barked. "Move!" Civilians surged toward the gate. Lucians tried to shove through them. A child screamed. A scientist fell. The stranger moved again. A shadow slid across the floor like spilled ink. It rose into a wall between the crowd and the gunfire. Bullets hit it and disappeared. The stranger caught the fallen scientist by the arm and pulled him up like he weighed nothing. Another shadow hand hooked the child's backpack and tugged her back into cover. Young saw it in one fast glance. The stranger was not trying to take over. He was trying to stop people from dying. Then the gate flared. The event horizon pulsed, bright and violent. The pull of it grabbed at everyone's clothes like wind. Young grabbed the nearest person and shoved them through. The stranger looked at the gate, then at the people running. He took one step forward. Behind him, the shadow soldiers moved as one, silent and ready, like they had been waiting for this their whole lives. The gate pulled. Young ran, and the stranger was dragged into the blue light with them, the shadows pouring in behind him like a flood. Young's first breath on the other side felt like it belonged to someone else. The air was colder. The light was dim. His boots hit a metal floor that did not belong to Icarus Base. The room was wide, curved, and ancient-looking. The walls were lined with strange panels and dead screens. The Stargate sat inside a space that felt like a ship's heart. Destiny. People poured out of the gate in a messy wave. Some fell. Some cried. Some ran without knowing where they were going. Young forced himself up, scanning. "Scott! Greer! Ray!" "Here," Scott said, already pulling someone to their feet. Greer was there too, eyes hard, rifle up, like he wanted to shoot the darkness itself. Rush shoved past civilians, face pale, eyes bright with focus. "We made it," he said, like he was congratulating himself. Then Young saw the stranger again. He had come through last. He landed in a low crouch and rose slowly, like he had all the time in the world. Behind him, 3 shadow soldiers stepped out of the gate. Then 5. Then more. They did not bump into people. They flowed around them. They spread like a protective fence. Panic spiked. A civilian screamed, "What are those?" Another shouted, "They're Lucian." "No," Scott said, voice tight. "Those aren't Lucian." Greer's rifle tracked the shadows. "Sir, tell me we're not keeping that." Young raised a hand. "Nobody shoots unless I say." The stranger's eyes moved over the crowd. He watched people the way a medic watched wounds. Not with fear, with a calm check. Rush stepped toward him, not even pretending to be polite. "Who are you? How did you come through the gate?" That wasn't possible. The stranger looked at Rush like he was deciding whether he was worth answering. Then he spoke. "I didn't choose it." His English was clear, slightly clipped, like someone who learned it for work. Young took a step forward, keeping his pistol low but ready. "You're on our ship. We're not your enemy. But you just brought an army." The stranger's eyes flicked to the shadow soldiers. They stood still, waiting. "They follow me," he said. Greer snorted. "No kidding?" Chloe Armstrong, still shaken, stared at the shadows with a mix of fear and wonder. "Are they people?" The stranger did not answer that. Young made a choice. It was what he always did. He turned confusion into orders. "Scott, get everyone to the main hab area. Ray, start a head count. Greer, perimeter security. TJ." "I'm here," TJ called, already checking a man's bleeding arm. Young looked back at the stranger. "You, stay where I can see you." The stranger did not argue. He simply stood. That calm was almost worse than rage. Young had dealt with angry men. Calm men were harder. Calm men thought. Rush circled, eyes on the shadows like they were the best toy he had ever seen. "Energy readings are off the chart. This is not technology. It's something else." Eli Wallace stumbled through the gate with a backpack and a stunned look. He stopped dead when he saw the shadow soldiers. "Oh," he said softly. "That's new." Young pointed. "Eli, you're with me." Eli blinked. "Me?" "Yes. Now." They moved down a corridor. Destiny's halls were long and curved, like the ship was grown instead of built. Lights were low, but the systems were waking as more power came online. Behind them, the stranger followed without being told. His shadows flowed behind him, silent. Greer kept looking back. "Sir, you see that? They're everywhere." "They're staying close," Scott said. "Like bodyguards." "Or like hunters," Greer muttered. Young stopped at a junction and turned. He faced the stranger directly now, away from the crowd. He kept his voice even. "This ship is not ours. We're stuck here. So we need rules. You don't hurt my people. You don't take control. You don't wander into places that get us killed." The stranger's expression did not change, but something in his eyes hardened, like he respected boundaries. "I won't hurt them," he said. "And the shadows?" Young asked. "They won't either," the stranger said. Then, after a pause, "Unless you attack me." It was not a threat. It was a fact. Rush leaned in too close. "What are you? Some kind of alien? A Goa'uld experiment? A wraith?" The stranger's head tilted slightly, like he was hearing names that meant nothing. "I'm human," he said. Eli let out a nervous laugh. "Okay, great. Totally normal human stuff happening." Young gave Eli a look. Eli shut his mouth. Ray's voice came over the radio. "Colonel, we have injured, and we have a situation. People are refusing to move while those things are near them." Young answered. "Keep them calm. Tell them I'm handling it." He looked back at the stranger. "Name." The stranger hesitated, just long enough to show this mattered. Like giving his name gave power away. Then he said it. Sung Jin-Woo. Rush's eyes widened at the confidence in the name, like it carried weight. "And your job?" Jin-Woo's eyes flicked to the shadows, then back to Young. "Hunting," he said. Young did not like how much sense that made. They reached a larger room. Destiny's main hab area was rough and half-lit. People sat on the floor. Some cried quietly. Some stared into space. Some argued in tight whispers. When Jin-Woo entered, every voice dropped. It was not respect. Not yet. It was fear. TJ walked past Jin-Woo with a medical kit. She glanced up, met his eyes, and did not flinch. "If you're hurt, tell me." Jin-Woo looked at her like she was strange in a good way. "I'm fine." She nodded and moved on. Eli stayed near Young, whispering, "Sir, I'm not saying he's friendly, but he didn't have to save those people back there." Young kept his eyes on Jin-Woo. "I saw." Rush's voice was quiet now, but sharp. "We need to scan him. We need blood. We need to understand how he did that." Ray stepped in before Young could answer. "No, he's not a lab sample." Rush's jaw tightened. "We're on a ship we barely understand. He could be the key to surviving." Young held up a hand. "Enough!" He looked at Jin-Woo. "We don't have a brig that will hold you if you decide to fight, so I'm not going to pretend we can force you." Greer scoffed. "Sir." Young ignored him. "But I can still decide how my people deal with you. You want space? You'll get it. You want supplies? You ask. You want to help? You follow orders on missions." Jin-Woo looked around at the tired faces, the fear, the injuries, the people far from home. "I didn't come here to rule," he said. Rush's eyes narrowed. "No one said—" Jin-Woo cut him off with a calm look. "You're thinking it." Silence hit hard. Young felt a strange relief. Jin-Woo was not playing social games. He was direct. That made him easier to deal with. Young nodded once. "Fine. We watch each other. That's the deal." Jin-Woo gave the smallest nod back. In the corner, Eli stared at one of the shadow soldiers, then cleared his throat. He spoke like he was talking to a new coworker on their first day. Hi," Eli said. "So, do you guys have names? Or do I make up names?" Greer threw his hands up. "Oh my God." One shadow soldier tilted its head, just a fraction. Eli blinked, half thrilled, half terrified. "Okay, that's a yes. We're doing names." Jin-Woo's mouth did not smile, but something in his eyes softened, like the idea was stupid, but harmless. Rush watched that moment and looked annoyed, like kindness was getting in the way of useful control. Then Destiny's lights flickered. A low hum rolled through the ship. Panels lit up. Symbols crawled across screens that no one had turned on. Rush's head snapped toward the bridge direction. "The ship is reacting. It's activating systems we didn't trigger." Young's instincts screamed, "Move!" They hurried down corridors toward the control room. The ship felt awake now. like it was listening. At the bridge, Rush slid into the chair like he belonged there. Eli hovered behind him, hands shaking with nerves. Numbers and symbols danced on the main display. "What is it?" Young asked. Rush's eyes moved fast. "The ship is detecting an anomaly." Young stared at the screen. "That's us." Rush shook his head slowly. "No, we're the normal problem. This is different." His eyes flicked toward Jin-Woo. The ship's sensors had locked onto him. A ripple of data formed around one reading, like destiny was circling it. Jin-Woo stared at the screen like it was a stranger staring back. Eli swallowed. "So the ship thinks he's special," Greer said, "or dangerous." Rush's voice went lower. "Or valuable." Young looked at Jin-Woo. "Do you feel anything? Anything at all?" Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed slightly, like he was listening to something no one else could hear. "Something is pulling," he said. "Pulling what?" Young asked. Jin-Woo answered without looking away from the screen. "The space around the gate. Like a door that wasn't meant to open." Rush's hands gripped the console. "That shouldn't be possible." Jin-Woo finally turned his eyes to Rush. "A lot of things shouldn't be possible." Before Rush could respond, alarms blared. Not the base alarms they knew. Destiny's alarms. Deep and cold. Eli's voice cracked. "What now?" Rush read the feed, then went still. "We have incoming." Young felt his throat tighten. "Incoming from where?" Rush pointed at the screen. A cluster of contacts, fast, clean, moving like they knew exactly how destiny worked. Scott leaned in. "Are those ships?" Rush shook his head. "No, they're not ships." Greer lifted his rifle like that could help. "Then what are they?" Rush swallowed hard. "Drones." Young had only heard the word in Rush's stories. Ancient machine hunters. Things that did not negotiate. Things that did not stop. Jin-Woo looked calm again. Too calm. But his shadows shifted, spreading like they were taking positions without being asked. Young stared at the tactical display and made the only call he could. "All hands to stations," he ordered. "We're about to find out what kind of war we just brought onto this ship." And in the dim bridge light, the ship's screen kept circling one reading, like a silent warning. Sung Jin-Woo. The first time the drones hit Destiny, it felt like the ship got punched in the side. Young grabbed the console to keep his balance. Lights flashed. The air hummed. Somewhere behind the walls, metal screamed. Rush barked orders at systems he barely understood. "Shields, if we have them. Route power. No, not there." Eli stared at the screen, eyes wide. "They're moving like fish. Like a school. Like they're thinking together." "Stop with the fish," Greer snapped, because fear made him mean. Scott looked at Young. "Sir, we can't fight these things head on." Young already knew that. He looked at Rush. "Can we jump?" Rush's jaw worked. "Not safely. The FTL drive needs another impact. Another shudder." Jin-Woo stood near the back of the bridge, silent, watching. He looked at the crew the way he had looked at Icarus Base. Counting. Measuring. Who would die first? Young forced himself to look at him. "You said you hunt." Jin-Woo's eyes flicked to the screen. "Those are not living." "You can still fight," Young said. Jin-Woo nodded once. "Yes." "Then help," Young said. "Because if we lose this ship, we all die." Jin-Woo did not answer with words. He moved. He stepped out of the bridge and into the corridor. His shadows flowed after him. Not all. Not a whole army. Just enough. Rush watched him go, eyes hungry and worried at the same time. Greer muttered, "We're trusting the shadow guy." "Great." Young said, "We're trusting survival." The drones did not board like soldiers. They did not stomp down ramps. They cut through metal. A section of the corridor ahead glowed red. The wall melted in a clean circle, like a hot tool had drawn a perfect ring. A second later, a machine slipped through. It was sleek, dark, built like a fast predator. No face, No expression. Just purpose. Scott fired first. Bullets sparked off its surface and did almost nothing. The drone moved so fast it blurred. It swung an arm blade. Scott barely rolled back. A shadow soldier rose between them. The blade hit Shadow and stopped, like it had struck thick rubber. The shadow soldier grabbed the drone's arm. Jin-Woo stepped in and hit the drone once. Not a long fight. Not a brawl. One strike. Clean. The drone's body snapped against the wall and crumpled. Eli's mouth fell open. Okay, that's... 2 more drones cut in behind the first hole. Then 3. Then 4. They learned fast. They didn't rush the shadows. They spread out. One tried to go past, aiming for the humans. Jin-Woo's hand lifted slightly. The floor shadow under that drone rose like a trap. A black chain wrapped its leg. The drone jerked, but the chain held. A shadow soldier slammed into it from the side and pinned it. Jin-Woo walked forward like he was calm, because he had done this 1,000 times. Young watched from behind, gun raised, feeling useless. He hated that feeling. Greer fired anyway, because he needed to do something. I don't care if it doesn't work. I'm shooting it. The drone's head turned toward Greer. It analyzed, it adjusted, it lunged. Jin-Woo moved between them. The drone's blade came down, aimed for his throat. Jin-Woo caught it with his bare hand. Metal screamed. Sparks jumped. The blade stopped like it had hit a wall. Jin-Woo twisted his wrist and ripped the blade off. He threw it down the corridor. It clanged and slid. For the first time, the drone hesitated. Not fear. Not emotion. A recalculation. Jin-Woo took advantage of that pause. He grabbed the drone's torso and slammed it into the floor hard enough to dent metal. Then he stomped once, crushing the machine's core. The other drones reacted. They did not charge. They pulled back into the hole they made, like they were taking the data and leaving. Young's radio crackled. "Colonel, we've got breaches on multiple decks." Young felt the ship being carved open around them. "Report positions. Fall back to choke points. Don't get surrounded." Rush's voice cut in, sharp. "If they reach the bridge, we're done. Keep them away from the control systems." So, Jin-Woo's head turned slightly, like he was listening to all the voices at once. "We can't protect everything," Young said, more to himself than anyone. Jin-Woo answered anyway. "Then protect people." He moved down the corridor toward the next breach. Young followed because he could not do anything else. They reached a junction where 2 corridors met. One led toward the bridge, the other led toward the main hab area. A hole opened in the wall on the hab side. Drones poured through, 6 at once. Behind them, faint screams echoed. Civilians. Young's stomach dropped. "Hab area, now!" Greer was already running, not because he was brave, but because he could not stand hearing helpless people scream. They hit the hab door and shoved it open. Inside, panic was a living thing. People packed the room. Some were hiding under tables. Some were trying to get out through the back. Ray was in the middle, shouting orders that no one wanted to hear. "Everyone down!" Young yelled. "Stay behind cover!" A drone cut through the far wall and stepped in. TJ was crouched over an injured man. She looked up and froze, the drone's arm raised. Jin-Woo was across the room in a blink. A shadow soldier took the hit. The blade sank into darkness and stopped. Jin-Woo's hand grabbed the drone's head and slammed it against the wall until it broke. More drones came. They spread out, trying to go around the shadows. Jin-Woo lifted his hand. Shadows rose from every corner of the room, from under benches, from under feet. Shadow soldiers formed a ring. Eli stumbled in behind Young, eyes wide. "He's making them out of the light in the room." "Eli!" Young snapped. "Stay behind!" Eli shut his mouth and ducked behind a console, still staring like he could not look away. The fight turned into something else now. Not a gunfight, not a hallway ambush. It became a moving wall of black soldiers and silver machines, slamming into each other. Jin-Woo was in the center of it, a quiet point in the storm. He did not shout. He did not pose. He used short steps and quick turns. He struck joints. He crushed cores. He used his shadows like hands, like shields, like nets. A drone tried to leap over the ring, aiming straight for the civilians. Jin-Woo didn't chase. He switched. 1 second he was in the center. The next, he was where a shadow soldier stood near the ceiling beam. It was like he traded places with it. He caught the drone mid-air and threw it across the room so hard it dented the opposite wall. Scott stared at that move like his brain was lagging behind his eyes. How? No time! Another drone lunged. Greer fired point blank, then got knocked back by a shock hit that buzzed his whole body. He hit the floor, teeth clenched. Jin-Woo stepped over him, blocking the next strike like it was nothing. He pulled Greer up by the collar with one hand and shoved him behind cover. Greer blinked, stunned. "Don't touch me!" Jin-Woo didn't react. "Stay alive." Ray crawled to a family huddled in the corner. She kept her voice steady even while a machine army tried to cut them apart. "Look at me. Stay low. Don't run." Chloe watched Jin-Woo fight and felt a strange mix of fear and relief. This was not a normal person, but he was choosing to stand between them and death. Again and again. The drones changed tactics. They stopped trying to kill civilians first. They tried to isolate Jin-Woo. 2 drones rushed him, not to strike, to herd. A third drone aimed a device at him. A pulse hit the air. The shadows flickered. Not gone, not erased, but disrupted, like a radio signal in a storm. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed for the first time. The drones weren't just attacking, they were learning. The shadow soldiers tightened formation. Jin-Woo stepped forward, using his own body more now. He moved like a blade, fast and simple. He tore through the 2 drones and slammed the third into the floor before it could pulse again. But the damage was done. The drones had tested something. They had gotten a reaction. They pulled back again, slipping through their breach holes as quickly as they came. Young's chest heaved. He realized he had been holding his breath. For a moment, the hab area was silent except for crying and the distant groan of the ship. Greer sat up, rubbing his shoulder, eyes still hard, but now different. Less mocking, more careful. TJ checked the injured man again. "He's stable," she whispered, more to herself than anyone. Ray stood, shaking, then forced her voice strong. "We need to move people away from the breach sites." Young nodded. "Rush, report." Rush's voice came over the radio, strained. "They're withdrawing. I don't know why. The ship's hull is damaged in several places, but we're still alive." Young looked at the broken drones on the floor. Smoke rose from cracked metal. The smell was sharp and hot. He looked at Jin-Woo. "Why did they leave?" Jin-Woo stared at the hole in the wall where the drones had vanished. "They got what they came for," he said. Young felt cold. "What did they come for?" Jin-Woo's voice stayed flat, but his eyes were sharper now, like he could see the next step coming. "To measure me," he said, "to learn how I fight." Eli pushed up from behind a console, unable to stop himself. "So, like, scouting?" Jin-Woo glanced at him. "Yes." Greer groaned. "Great. So next time they come better." Rush's voice cut in again, quieter now, almost excited in a way that made Young want to grab him by the collar. "Colonel, Destiny's sensors show something else. Their retreat pattern wasn't random. They're repositioning along our projected route." Young's throat tightened. "They're tracking the ship?" Rush hesitated. "Not the ship." Young turned slowly and looked at Jin-Woo. The lights above them flickered once, as if destiny itself agreed. Jin-Woo's shadows shifted without being told, spreading a little wider, like they were already preparing for the next wave. Young forced his voice steady. "We need to talk. Now. Not in front of everyone. Bridge. Private." Jin-Woo gave a small nod. He didn't look afraid. He didn't look proud. He looked like someone who had seen this pattern before. A new world, a new enemy, and a new kind of hunt. And as they left the hab area, the people who watched him didn't cheer. They didn't thank him. They just stared, Because they were starting to understand the truth. Whatever Sung Jin-Woo was, the universe had noticed. And it was coming. 2 days after the first drone breach, the ship felt smaller. Young could feel it in the way people walked. They stayed close to walls. They avoided dark corners. They kept glancing behind them, like the drones might cut through the metal again at any second. He stood in the main hall outside the hab area, watching his people try to pretend they were fine. They were not fine. A man argued with Ray near a storage crate. "You can't just let that thing roam free." Ray's voice stayed calm, but her jaw was tight. "He has a name. He's saved lives. We don't imprison someone because we're scared." The man pointed past her, toward the corridor where the shadows sometimes stood. "Those aren't people. Those are—" A shadow soldier was in the corner, still as a statue. It did not move. It did not breathe. It did not blink. But the moment the man raised his voice, the shadow's head turned slightly. The man froze. Ray stepped in front of him like a shield. "Stop. You're making it worse." Young walked over. "What's going on?" The man's eyes flicked to Young, desperate. "Sir, you saw what he did. We can't fight him. If he decides we're in his way, we're dead." Young did not argue with the fear. Fear had a point. He had watched Jin-Woo crush machines that bullets barely scratched. He had watched him switch places like the ship's space was a toy. He had watched shadows take hits that would have killed any human. Young kept his voice firm. If he wanted you dead, you would be dead. That's the truth. So we deal with what is real. He is here. He is not leaving. And we need every advantage we can get. The man swallowed. "So we just trust him?" Young looked down the hall where Jin-Woo had been given a quiet corner to sleep. He never slept like everyone else. He rested like a guard dog that could wake in a second. "We trust his actions," Young said. "We watch his choices. That's how trust starts." The man nodded, but not because he was convinced. Because Young was the only thing keeping the ship from breaking into pieces. Young turned and headed for the bridge. Rush was already there, sitting like he owned the chair. His fingers moved across controls with fast confidence. He was sweating a little, but his eyes were bright. Eli stood behind him with a tablet and a worried expression that never fully left his face. Young leaned close. "Tell me something good." Rush didn't look up. "We're stable. Mostly. Life support is holding. Water is tight. Food is worse." "Something good," Young repeated. Rush finally glanced up. "We survived contact with the drones. That is good." Young didn't smile. "That's not good. That's luck." Rush's eyes narrowed. It wasn't luck. It was him. Young didn't deny it. And that's the problem. Rush's voice softened, but it was still sharp. "It's also the solution. If we understand what he is, we can use it." Eli shifted. "Or we can not use people." Rush shot him a look. "Don't start." Young cut in. "What have you been doing?" Rush gestured at the screens. "Scanning. Tracking the anomalies the ship flags when he walks past. Destiny is reacting to him. It's not subtle." Eli swallowed. "That's because he's weird." Young glanced at the corridor outside the bridge. 2 shadow soldiers stood there now, not inside. They didn't block the entrance. They just existed, like a warning sign. Young lowered his voice. "Rush, you are not going to poke him until he bites." Rush leaned back slowly. "Colonel, I am not poking. I am trying to survive." Young held his stare. "Survival means discipline. If you break him, you don't get a second chance." Rush's mouth twitched. "You think I can break him?" Young didn't answer, because the truth was worse. He didn't know what could break Jin-Woo. He didn't know what could stop him, if he ever decided to stop listening. The door to the bridge opened without a knock. Jin-Woo walked in. He moved quietly, but the room still changed around him. It wasn't magic. It was instinct. People noticed power the way animals noticed storms. Young turned to face him. I asked you here. Jin-Woo nodded once. I heard. Eli blinked. You heard. Like, through walls? Jin-Woo didn't explain. He looked at Young. You wanted to talk. Young stepped closer, keeping his tone controlled. The drones came for the ship. You think they were measuring you? Yes, Jin-Woo said. Rush leaned forward like he couldn't help himself. How do you know? Jin-Woo's eyes flicked to Rush, cool and flat. They didn't push until they won. They pulled back when they learned enough. Rush's hands tightened on the chair arms. That's an assumption. Jin-Woo took a slow breath. It's experience. Young watched Rush's face. He saw it there. Not just fear. Not just curiosity. Control. Rush wanted control over the one thing on the ship that could make him feel safe. Young said, We need to set rules. Jin-Woo looked almost bored. You already tried. Not like this, Young said. You saved people. You fought. That matters. But now we need to talk about what happens if someone tries to force you, because that will happen. Eli's eyes widened. Wait, you mean us? Young didn't look away from Jin-Woo. Some of us. And if that happens, we all pay for it. Jin-Woo's expression didn't shift much, but his gaze sharpened. Who? Young didn't answer. He didn't need to. Rush was right there. Rush's lips parted, then closed. He didn't deny it. He just looked offended. Ray's voice came from the doorway. Colonel. Young glanced over. Ray stood with her arms crossed, tired but steady. We need a meeting. The ship is splitting. People are choosing sides. Young rubbed his forehead. Fine. Get everyone who matters. Rush scoffed quietly. We don't have time for feelings meetings. Ray looked at him like he was a child. Yes, we do. Because if people panic, you lose your ship faster than any drone can take it. Jin-Woo watched Ray, then Young. You think talking will stop fear? Ray answered before Young could. Not stop. Shape. Fear doesn't vanish, but rules can exist inside it. Jin-Woo was silent for a moment. Then he gave a small nod, like he respected that. The meeting happened in the largest open space they could manage. People stood in a loose circle. There was no table to hide behind, no comfortable chairs. That made it honest. Young opened with the truth. We are stuck. We have enemies. We have limited supplies. And we have a new factor on this ship that no one understands. Eyes flicked toward Jin-Woo. He stood a little apart, hands relaxed at his sides. Shadows hovered near the ceiling corners like quiet guards. Greer stood close to Young, arms folded, face hard. Scott stood nearby too, watchful and tense. TJ stayed near the back, ready to move if someone collapsed. Rush stepped forward. I'm going to say what everyone is afraid to say. He is dangerous. Murmurs spread. Rush raised his voice. Yes, he saved us. But if he decides he doesn't like our decisions, we cannot stop him. So we need safeguards. Ray snapped. Safeguards or chains? Rush ignored her. We need to understand what he is. We need tests. A woman from the civilian group spoke, voice shaking. Like, blood tests? Rush nodded. Yes, scans, samples, anything. Jin-Woo didn't move. He didn't react. That made the room colder. Young stepped in. No one is taking samples without consent. Rush's face tightened. Colonel, that's not practical. Ray's voice cut in, sharp. Consent is practical. It's how you stop turning into monsters. Rush looked like he wanted to laugh. Monsters? We're trying to live. Greer muttered. We're trying to live with a shadow army. Eli raised a hand halfway, then dropped it, then raised it again like he couldn't decide. Can I say something? Young nodded. Go. Eli cleared his throat. He didn't have to help us at all. He could have walked away. He could have let the drones kill us. But he didn't. That matters. A man near the back snapped. Or he helped because he wants us to think he's safe. Eli flinched. Or because he's not a bad guy. Rush rolled his eyes. We don't know. That's the point. Young turned to Jin-Woo. Do you want to speak? Jin-Woo's gaze moved across the faces. Fear, anger, hope, suspicion. He had seen the same mix before, just in different rooms. He spoke simply. I won't hurt you. Someone scoffed. That's easy to say. Jin-Woo didn't raise his voice. If I wanted to hurt you, I wouldn't stand here talking. The room went quiet. Greer's jaw clenched. He hated the truth of it. Jin-Woo looked at Rush. You want tests? Rush held his stare. Yes. Jin-Woo's eyes were flat. No. Rush's face flushed. You can't just refuse. Young cut in. He can. He just did. Rush stepped closer, voice rising. This is bigger than your feelings about rights, Colonel. This ship is on a mission. Ancient technology. Unknown enemies. If he is an anomaly, destiny might react. Jin-Woo's head tilted slightly. You don't want to understand. You want to own. Rush froze for half a second. Then he recovered. That's ridiculous. Ray stared at Rush with tired anger. It's not ridiculous. It's you. Rush opened his mouth, then stopped. He looked around and realized too many people were watching him, not Jin-Woo. Young made his decision. Here's the rule. Sung Jin-Woo is not a prisoner. He is not a lab subject. He is an ally if he chooses to be. If anyone tries to chain him, we all lose. A few people looked relieved. A few looked furious. Young wasn't done. Second rule, he follows mission safety. If you want to go somewhere, you tell us. If you want to join an expedition, you take orders in the field. Not because you're weak, because we need coordination. Jin-Woo's eyes met Young's. I can follow orders that make sense. Young accepted that as close as he would get to a yes. Ray added, third rule, we stop calling him it. A few people shifted, embarrassed. Greer muttered, fine. Shadow guy. Eli whispered to Greer, that's still not a name. Greer shot him a look, don't. Eli couldn't help it. His eyes drifted to the shadow soldiers in the corner. Also, I'm just saying, if we're going to have them standing guard, we should, maybe, organize. Ray blinked. Organize the shadows? Eli nodded too fast. Like, just basic stuff. Like, where they stand. So people don't freak out when a shadow is suddenly behind them. Greer groaned. We're not making a schedule for nightmare soldiers. Eli looked genuinely hurt. They're helping. Jin-Woo glanced at Eli, and for the first time there was something almost like amusement in his eyes. Almost. Young ended the meeting before it became a fight. Enough. Back to work. People drifted away in clusters, whispering. The split didn't vanish. It just became quieter. Later, in a narrow corridor, Ray caught up to Young. Her voice was low. You did the right thing. Young didn't look convinced. I did the only thing. There's a difference. Ray hesitated. Rush is going to keep pushing. Young's face tightened. I know. Down the hall, Rush stood alone near a console, pretending to review data. Young could see the tension in his shoulders. The way he avoided looking at Jin-Woo directly, like eye contact, made it real. Eli walked up to Jin-Woo cautiously, holding a small tablet. So, I know you said no tests. I get that. But can I ask? Just normal questions. Jin-Woo looked at him. Ask. Eli swallowed. The shadows. Are they, like dead people? Jin-Woo's expression didn't soften, but his voice stayed calm. They were. Eli's face paled. Oh. Jin-Woo added, they're mine now? Eli forced a shaky smile. Okay, cool, not cool. But, okay. He glanced at one shadow soldier standing near the corner. This one. He kind of stands like a guard. So, I was thinking, we could call him Guard. Greer, passing by. stopped dead. No. Eli held his hands up. It's just a label. Greer pointed at the shadow. That thing doesn't need a label. It needs to stay away from my bed. The shadow soldier didn't react. Eli looked at Jin-Woo like he wanted permission. Jin-Woo stared at the shadow, then spoke one word. Fine. Eli's eyes lit up. Yes, okay. Guard. Welcome to the team. Greer walked away, muttering like he was in pain. That night, Young couldn't sleep. He sat in the dim light of the bridge, watching the stars move past in slow silence. The ship hummed under his feet like a giant animal. Rush entered quietly. Colonel. Young didn't turn. If you're here to argue, don't. Rush paused, then changed tactics. I'm here to warn you. Young finally looked at him. About what? Rush's eyes flicked to the main screen. Destiny sensors. The drones are changing their pattern. They're not just chasing us. They're anticipating us. Young's chest tightened. How? Rush hesitated. I don't know, but there's another thing. He tapped a control. A set of symbols appeared. Ancient. Clean. Unfriendly. Rush spoke carefully. When Jin-Woo walks through certain sections, Destiny flags him as an anomaly. It runs subroutines. It checks systems. It reacts. Young stared. Like it's afraid of him? Rush shook his head slowly. No. Young waited. Rush's voice was almost quiet, like it recognizes something it shouldn't. Young felt a cold pressure behind his ribs. Meaning? Rush's eyes didn't leave the symbols. Meaning there are rules on this ship, ancient rules, and he might be outside them. Young's radio crackled with a report. Colonel, we've got a Lucian prisoner waking up. He's asking for you. Young's jaw tightened. Great. The prisoner was in a small room they had turned into a holding space. Not a real brig. Just a locked door. 2 guards. And hope. The Lucian man smiled when Young entered, like he already had a plan. His face was bruised. His lip was split. His eyes were sharp anyway. Young stayed near the door. Talk. The prisoner lifted his hands. You have something special on your ship. Young didn't answer. The prisoner's smile widened. The Shadow Man. I saw him on Icarus. Everyone saw him. You think word won't spread? Young leaned forward slightly. What do you want? The prisoner's eyes gleamed. A deal. You're stuck. You're hungry. You're scared. So are we. We can work together. Young's voice stayed flat. No. The prisoner shrugged. Not you. Him. Young's stomach tightened. You don't talk to him. The prisoner laughed softly. Why? Because you're afraid he'll choose us? Young didn't react. The prisoner kept going. He doesn't belong with you, the man said. You'll try to cage him. Your scientist already wants to cut him open. We would treat him like royalty. Young stared at him. You'd try to use him. The prisoner's grin didn't fade. Everyone uses power. The only question is who admits it. Young turned and walked out before his anger became a mistake. In the corridor, Jin-Woo was waiting. Young didn't know how long he had been there. Jin-Woo was good at being quiet. Young stopped. You heard that too? Jin-Woo nodded. Yes. Young exhaled slowly. He's trying to recruit you. Jin-Woo's face stayed calm. I know. Young watched him carefully. And? Jin-Woo's eyes were tired again. I don't take orders from criminals. Young felt something ease in his chest. Not trust. Not yet. But less fear. Jin-Woo looked past Young, toward the dark corridor that led deeper into Destiny's old sections. The ship is pulling. Young frowned. Pulling what? Jin-Woo's gaze sharpened, like he could feel something in the air. Not me. Not you. The space. The gate systems. Like something is calling to be opened. Young didn't like how that sounded. Rush says the ship reacts to you. Jin-Woo answered simply. I react to it too. Young studied him. What are you going to do? Jin-Woo's voice stayed calm, but there was a decision inside it. I'm going to find what's calling. Young's instincts screamed again, but he didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He needed to stay smart. We do it together, Young said. Jin-Woo looked at him. You don't trust me? Young met his gaze. No, but I trust that you don't want innocent people dead. And right now, that's enough. Jin-Woo gave a small nod. And far outside the ship, in the dark between stars, the drones adjusted their silent formation again, like a pack turning toward fresh tracks. They had learned the shape of the new hunter. Next, they would learn how to trap him. Young had barely finished the next ration briefing when Jin-Woo approached him again. This time, it wasn't about the ship's pull. It was about the crew. Young could tell because Jin-Woo didn't come alone. He came with a quiet pressure in his posture, like he had made up his mind. I want to scout, Jin-Woo said. Young stared at him. Scout where? The next planets, Jin-Woo said, before you send groups to die. Young's jaw tightened. We don't send groups to die. Jin-Woo didn't blink. You sent them into drones with rifles. Young felt heat rise in his chest. He forced it down. We didn't know. Jin-Woo's voice stayed flat. Now you do. Young glanced around. People were listening. Not close enough to hear every word, but close enough to feel tension. Young kept his tone even. You don't go alone. Jin-Woo's eyes held steady. Then send someone who won't slow me down. Young almost laughed. Almost. You're new here, Jin-Woo. That's not how this works. Jin-Woo's gaze flicked to the corridor where civilians slept in tight groups. Your people are tired. They're scared. If you keep guessing, you will lose more. Young knew he was right. That made it worse. Young thought fast. Scott goes. Eli goes. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. Why him? Young nodded toward Eli, who was walking by with a tablet and a nervous look. Because Eli reads systems you don't know, and because he keeps things human. Jin-Woo didn't argue. He just nodded once. Fine. Eli arrived like he had been summoned. Hi. Did I do something? Greer, standing nearby, muttered, Yeah, you made friends with the shadows. Eli glanced at Jin-Woo. Are we going somewhere? Young said, You're going to help keep this ship alive. Try not to die. Eli's mouth opened, then closed. Okay, cool. Love that for me. Scott showed up armed and ready, face serious. Sir. Young pulled him aside. You watch him. You keep Eli alive. And if anything feels wrong, you pull back. You hear me? Scott nodded. Yes, sir. Young looked back at Jin-Woo. And you. You do not take my people into something they can't come back from. Jin-Woo's voice stayed calm. I won't. Young wanted to believe him. He settled for accepting it. The next gate dial felt like stepping into a mouth. The planet on the other side was cold and gray. The sky was thin. The wind was sharp. Rock stretched in long, jagged fields. Scott moved first, scanning with his weapon. Eli stumbled after, trying to keep his footing. Jin-Woo walked like the terrain did not matter. They moved fast. Jin-Woo's shadows spread out, thin and quiet, sliding over stone like spilled ink. One climbed a ridge and looked out, head tilting as if it could smell danger. Eli whispered, Do they see? Jin-Woo didn't look back. Yes. Scott's voice was low. That's comforting. They reached a shallow valley. Half buried in rock was something that didn't belong. Metal. Smooth. Curved. Ancient. An ancient structure. Eli's eyes widened. Oh, wow. That is definitely not natural. Scott frowned. Why would this be here? Rush's voice crackled over the radio from Destiny. Report. Young had insisted they keep a line open. Rush had insisted because he couldn't stand not watching. Eli spoke first. We found an ancient structure. Looks like a bunker. Or the door. Jin-Woo stepped closer. The moment his foot crossed a faint line in the rock, the structure woke. Lights flickered on, pale and white. Symbols ran across a panel like it had been waiting for someone to arrive. Eli gasped. "It's reacting to you." Scott's grip tightened on his rifle. "Back up." Jin-Woo didn't move. His eyes narrowed slightly, reading the shifting light like it was a challenge. A low hum rolled through the ground. A seam in the metal wall opened. A door. Eli swallowed. "We're going in, right?" Scott looked at Jin-Woo. "Are we going in?" Jin-Woo stepped forward. The door widened, as if the structure agreed. Inside, the air was still, cold. The corridors were narrow and clean, like dust could not survive in here. The light was dim, but steady. Eli's tablet beeped. "Power levels are rising. It's like it's booting up." Scott moved carefully. Weapon up. Stay close. Jin-Woo's shadows slipped along the ceiling and corners. They did not touch the walls. They watched. The deeper they went, the more the structure seemed to respond. A panel lit up when Jin-Woo passed. Another door opened without Eli touching anything. Scott whispered, "It's like it wants him." Eli whispered back, "Or it thinks he's someone else." Jin-Woo stopped at a wider chamber. In the center was a tall console, shaped like a thin pillar. Symbols crawled across it. The air around it felt different, like the room was holding its breath. Jin-Woo stared at it. Eli stepped closer, unable to help himself. This could be data, coordinates, maybe even a way to... The floor pulsed. Not light, a wave. Jin-Woo's shadows flickered. They didn't vanish, but they stuttered, like someone had grabbed the signal and shaken it. Eli froze. Did it just do something to them?" Scott shifted, alarm rising. "What was that?" Jin-Woo's eyes sharpened. He lifted a hand slightly. The shadows tried to rise stronger, like a shield. The room pulsed again. The shadows dipped and thinned. Jin-Woo lowered his hand slowly. His voice stayed calm, but there was a new edge. "It doesn't like my power." Eli whispered, "So, it's a defense system." Scott's radio crackled. Rush's voice came through, excited. "A dampening field, ancient technology. It might be trying to..." "Rush," Scott snapped. "We're inside it. Talk less." Rush went quiet, but not fully. He never could. Jin-Woo stepped closer to the console anyway, cautious now. He didn't rely on his shadows. He relied on his senses. His fingers hovered near the surface. The console lit up brighter. Then the wall behind them glowed red. Scott spun. "Contact!" A perfect circle melted in the metal wall. Not ancient. Drone. One machine slipped through, then two, then more. They moved faster in the tight corridor, blades up, bodies low. Scott fired. Sparks flew. The drones barely slowed. Eli backed away, heart hammering. "They followed us." Scott growled, or they were waiting. Jin-Woo moved. Even with the field disrupting his shadows, he was still terrifying. He stepped into the first drone, catching its arm, twisting and snapping a joint with a sharp crack of metal. He drove his fist into its core and ripped something out that looked like a glowing heart. The drone went dead. Two drones rushed him together, trying to pin him. Jin-Woo let them. He took the hit on his forearm, then shoved one into the other, using the tight space against them. He slammed both into the wall hard enough to dent it. A shadow soldier tried to rise between the drones and Eli. The field pulsed. The shadow soldier flickered. Thinner. A drone's blade cut through the weak shadow and kept coming. Eli screamed and fell back. Scott leapt in front of him and took the blade across his vest. The armor held, but the force knocked him down. "Scott!" Eli shouted. Scott gritted his teeth. "I'm fine." Another drone jumped over the fallen soldier, going straight for Eli. Jin-Woo's eyes flashed. He couldn't switch with a shadow easily right now. The field made it unstable. So he did it the hard way. He moved like a bullet. He crossed the chamber in a blink and caught the drone midair. He slammed it into the floor, then stomped once. The drone's body split and went still. Eli stared up at him, breathing hard. Okay, that was close. Jin-Woo didn't answer. He looked toward the corridor where more drones were pushing in. They weren't charging wild. They were trying to trap. 2 drones attacked from the front. 2 cut another hole in a sidewall, trying to flank. Scott dragged himself up, weapon shaking. We need out. Eli scrambled to the console. If I can just pull data... Jin-Woo grabbed Eli's shoulder and yanked him back hard. Not cruel. Fast. A drone blade cut through the air where Eli's head had been. Eli's face went white. Thank you. Jin-Woo didn't look at him. Stay behind me. Eli nodded so fast he almost fell. The console flashed again, like it didn't care about the fight. Like it only cared about Jin-Woo being present. Eli shouted over the noise. It's still offering data. It's like a download trigger. Jin-Woo glanced at it, then made a decision. He stepped to the console and placed his palm on it. The field pulsed hard. Shadows flickered wildly, shrinking to thin stains on the floor. Scott's eyes widened. Jin-Woo! Jin-Woo didn't move. The console blasted light. Symbols raced faster. A burst of information slammed into Eli's tablet without him even touching it. Eli yelped as the tablet grew hot. I got it! I got something! At the same time, the drones surged. One drone didn't attack Jin-Woo's body. It reached for his shadow. It stabbed a thin, needle-like tool into the floor where Jin-Woo's shadow pooled. Jin-Woo's eyes snapped to it. He moved too late to stop the contact. The drone pulled the tool back, and for a second, the tip glowed with a dark shimmer, like it had stolen a piece of his power. Then the drone didn't stay to fight. It jumped back and vanished through a hole. Jin-Woo's breath went slow and controlled. His face stayed calm, but his eyes were colder now. Scott saw it and felt his stomach drop. What did it do? Jin-Woo's voice was flat. Marked me. Eli's hands trembled around the tablet. Guys, we need to leave. Now. I don't like the way it's... The structure shook. Doors that had opened easily before started sealing shut. The ancient system wasn't helping anymore. It was locking them in. Scott swore. It's a trap. Eli stared at the tablet screen. There's a warning message. It's partial, but it's clear. Jin-Woo grabbed Eli's shoulder again. Read it. Eli swallowed and forced his voice steady. It says, do not allow the hunters to reach the signal. Scott's eyes narrowed. Hunters? Drones? Eli nodded, panicked. I think so. Jin-Woo's gaze lifted, like he could feel the ship far away, like he could feel the path destiny would take. Signal, he repeated. Scott barked. Later, we're stuck. A door ahead sealed with a heavy click. Behind them, drone-cutting sounds started again. A new hole. More machines coming. Scott aimed his weapon and tried to breathe. We can't hold this. Eli's voice shook. We can't run. Doors are closing. Jin-Woo looked at the sealed door ahead. He didn't try to order shadows. The field was still pushing them down. So he did it like a man, not a monarch. He walked to the door, placed both hands on it, and pushed. Metal groaned. Scott stared. That door is ancient alloy. Jin-Woo pushed harder. The door bowed inward. A crack formed in the seam. Eli whispered, no way. Jin-Woo shoved once more. The door ripped open enough to crawl through. Scott grabbed Eli. Move! They scrambled through. Jin-Woo followed last, turning to face the corridor behind them. The drones were almost through. Jin-Woo raised his hand, and even weakened. A thin wave of darkness spilled out like smoke. It wasn't a wall of soldiers. It was a simple blind. A smear of shadow that made the corridor dim and confused the drones for half a second. Half a second was all they needed. They ran. They burst out of the structure and into the cold, open air, the wind slapping their faces like the planet was yelling at them to leave. The gate stood at the edge of the valley, still active, the blue surface steady. Scott pushed Eli through first. Eli stumbled into the light. Scott turned to Jin-Woo. Go! Jin-Woo didn't move yet. He looked back at the structure entrance. A drone slipped out behind them, fast and silent. It didn't attack. It stood still for one heartbeat, head tilted, like it was looking at Jin-Woo, the way an animal looks at a new predator. Then it backed away and vanished into the hole again. Jin-Woo's eyes stayed on the spot it left. Scott grabbed his arm. Now! Jin-Woo stepped through the gate. Back on Destiny, Young was waiting with a weapon he didn't want to use. The team stumbled out. Eli nearly collapsed. Scott leaned on the wall, breathing hard. Jin-Woo walked out last, calm again, but heavier, like something had changed. Young grabbed Scott's shoulder. Report. Scott forced words out. Ancient structure, defense field. Drones were waiting. They did something to him. Young's eyes snapped to Jin-Woo. What did they do? Jin-Woo's voice stayed flat. They tagged my shadow. Rush pushed in, eyes wild. Eli, data. Eli lifted the tablet with shaking hands. I got a map, not full, and a warning. Rush grabbed the tablet too fast. Eli almost dropped it. Careful! Rush barely heard him. His eyes raced over the symbols. This is incredible! Young stepped closer. Say it in English, Rush. Rush swallowed. There's a signal Destiny has been following. This data suggests the drones are trying to reach it too. And the Ancients left a warning. Don't let the hunters reach it. Young's chest tightened. So we're in the middle of a race. Rush nodded slowly, still staring at the screen. Yes. Greer walked up from the side, eyeing Jin-Woo like he was seeing him for the first time. And now they tagged you, so they can follow us better. Jin-Woo didn't deny it. Eli's voice cracked. They didn't want to kill him. They wanted to learn him. Rush's mouth opened, thrilled and scared at the same time. If they can track his energy signature... Young cut him off. Stop. Not right now. Rush's eyes flashed with frustration. Ray arrived, taking one look at Scott's bruises and Eli's pale face. What happened? Young answered. We found proof this isn't random, and we found proof we're not ready. Ray's gaze moved to Jin-Woo. Are you okay? Jin-Woo looked at her for a moment. Yes, but his eyes said something else. He looked down at his own shadow on the floor. For a second, it seemed darker than before, like it had been touched. Jin-Woo's fingers curled slightly, controlled and quiet. Now they know how to follow, he said. Young felt cold. How bad? Jin-Woo's gaze lifted to the corridor, as if he could already see the next attack coming through the walls. Next time, he said, they won't scout. Rush stared at the data and whispered, almost to himself. They didn't find Destiny. Young looked at him. Rush's voice got quieter, and that quiet was more frightening than shouting. They found him! Jin-Woo stood there in the ship's dim light, surrounded by people who needed him and feared him at the same time. And somewhere ahead, in the dark, the signal waited. And the hunters were moving. Weeks on Destiny did not feel like weeks. They felt like one long day that never ended. The lights stayed the same dim color. The corridors stayed cold. The stars outside the windows stayed silent. And every time the ship jumped, the crew felt their stomachs lift like they were falling. Young learned the new rhythm of survival fast. Mornings were ration lines, repairs, arguments about who got the next shower slot. Nights were quiet whispers and sudden alarms that made everyone sit up with their hearts racing. And in the middle of that, Sung Jin-Woo became something the crew could not ignore. He did not demand a room. He did not demand respect. He did not take Rush's chair or Young's authority. He just moved through the ship like a guard who never clocked out. Shadow soldiers began standing in places that mattered. Not in the way that blocked people, in the way that stopped panic. A shadow stood near the main water storage, like a silent sign that said, "No one steals from here." Another stood at the med bay door, not because TJ asked, but because Jin-Woo noticed she was alone too often. 2 stayed near the hab entrance at night, because that was where fear gathered. The first few days, people complained. They whispered about being watched. They avoided the darker hallway turns because they did not want to suddenly see a tall shadow shape in the corner. But then the ship jumped during a maintenance shift, and a man slipped off a ladder and would have cracked his skull open. A shadow hand caught him mid-fall and set him down gently. After that, people complained less. They still watched Jin-Woo with cautious eyes. They still did not know what he was, but they could not deny what he did. Eli Wallace tried to make the new reality feel normal in the only way he knew how. He tried to organize it. It started small. He walked up to a shadow soldier and said, "Okay, so, you stand here. That's good. That makes sense. You're like, security." Greer heard him and almost choked. "Stop talking to it like it's a dog." Eli's face tightened. "He has a name." Greer rolled his eyes. "The shadow guy has a name. The shadows do not." Eli held up a hand, like he was calming down an angry customer. "They follow orders. They protect us. They literally saved your life. I think they deserve, at minimum, labels." Greer stared at him like Eli had gone insane. "You are making a roster for nightmares." Eli did not even deny it. He pulled out a tablet. "I already started one." Young found out on day 8. He walked into the mess area and saw a piece of paper taped to a wall. It had a heading written in thick marker. "Shadow duty. Temporary." Under it were boxes and times. Greer stood in front of it, pointing like he wanted to shoot the paper. "Tell me this is a joke." Eli tried to look innocent. He failed. "It's not a joke. It's structure." Young pinched the bridge of his nose. "Eli." Eli rushed the words out. "Colonel, listen. People panic when a shadow is suddenly behind them. But if they know, okay, the guard is near the hab at night. It's less scary. It's like routine. Routine is good." Young looked at the paper. He hated that Eli was right. Greer muttered, "We are going to die on a ship in another galaxy with Shadow HR." Jin-Woo was standing near the back of the room, quiet, watching. His gaze flicked to the paper once, then to Eli, then away. But Young caught the smallest thing in Jin-Woo's eyes. He did not dislike it. It was stupid. It was harmless. And it made people feel a little less trapped. That mattered. Rush hated it. Rush hated anything that took control away from his hands. He did not say it out loud. Not at first. He just started spending more time at the main interface. More time running scans when Jin-Woo was nearby. More time trying to map shadow energy like it was a power outlet he could plug into. Young confronted him after catching him near a corridor panel with a handheld scanner. "What are you doing?" Young demanded. Rush didn't flinch. "Learning." Young's voice went low. "You're poking." Rush's eyes flashed. "Colonel, the drones tagged him. The ship reacts to him. The ancient structure reacted to him. Everything is pointing to the same truth." Young crossed his arms. "Say it." Rush's mouth tightened. "He is the key." Young leaned closer. "And people are not keys." Rush let out a sharp breath. "We don't get to pretend we're normal anymore. We're stuck on an ancient ship with limited food, limited air, and an enemy that adapts. If Jin-Woo can change the odds, then we need to understand him." Young stared him down. "Ask him. Not behind his back." Rush's lips twitched with frustration. "He'll say no." "Then you live with no," Young said. Rush looked past Young, toward a dark corridor where a shadow soldier stood. "You think you can afford that?" Young didn't answer with words. He answered with a hard stare that ended the argument for the moment. But Young knew the truth, too. Rush would not stop wanting control. And Jin-Woo would not stop feeling the ship pull at the edges of space. The pull did not go away. Some days it was faint, like a whisper behind the walls. Some days it was stronger, like the ship was calling to him through metal. Jin-Woo felt it even when he did not show it. He would pause near certain panels. He would glance toward certain locked corridors, like he could sense something behind them. Young finally asked him about it in private, away from Rush. They stood in a narrow corridor near the observation window. Stars slid past like slow sparks. Young kept his voice simple. "What is it?" Jin-Woo's eyes stayed on the darkness outside. "A door." Young frowned. "A door to what?" Jin-Woo didn't pretend to know everything. "I don't know, but it's tied to the gate systems, to the ship's path, to the signal." Young felt his chest tighten. The signal. Jin-Woo nodded once. "It's not just a destination. It's a call." Young's mind went to the warning Eli had read. "Do not allow the hunters to reach the signal." "The drones want it too," Young said. "Yes," Jin-Woo answered, "and now they want me." Young looked at him. "You still want to stay?" Jin-Woo's eyes flicked to the Hab corridor where voices echoed, where people laughed sometimes, even tired, where fear lived but didn't win every minute. "I don't leave people to die," Jin-Woo said. Young felt something shift inside him. It wasn't trust in a warm way. It was respect. Then the ship alarm screamed. Not a drill, not a minor fault. A full, deep warning that made the air feel sharp. Young and Jin-Woo moved at the same time. The bridge was already a storm when they arrived. Rush was in the chair. Eli was at his side, hands trembling over a console. Scott and Greer were armed and waiting near the entrance. Rush snapped, "Multiple breaches, multiple decks. They're not testing anymore." Young stepped in. "Show me." The screen displayed red marks across Destiny's interior like wounds. 5, 6, 8. Eli swallowed. "They're cutting in at choke points, like they want to hurt us." Greer's jaw tightened. "They're hunting people now." Rush's voice was tight, but there was a sharp excitement too, like he hated this and loved being right. "They're targeting key systems, life support, power routing, the bridge." Young looked at Jin-Woo. "Can you cover all of it?" Jin-Woo's expression stayed calm. "Not alone." Young nodded. "Then we don't make you do it alone." He turned to Scott. "Get teams to seal corridors, use bulkheads, funnel them, do not spread out." Scott nodded. "Yes, sir." Young turned to Ray, who had rushed in, face pale but focused. "Keep civilians grouped. Move them to the safest zone we have." Ray's voice stayed firm. "Already doing it." Young turned to TJ. "Medbay ready." TJ nodded once. "Always." The ship shook with another impact. Somewhere nearby, metal screamed. Jin-Woo stepped forward. Shadows rose under his feet like they were waking. They did not flood the bridge. They waited, like soldiers waiting for a signal. Jin-Woo spoke quietly. "They will try to isolate me." Rush glanced at him. "How do you know?" Jin-Woo looked at Rush like he was tired of answering. "Because they can't kill me easily. So they'll change the battlefield." Eli whispered. "That's really scary." Greer muttered, "Welcome to our lives." Then the first drones reached their deck. They didn't come in as a wave. They came in as a pattern. 2 cut through a wall down the hall, fast and silent. 1 moved left. 1 moved right. Like they were opening space for others. A third drone appeared behind them and fired a pulse tool at the floor. The lights flickered. Jin-Woo's shadows shuddered like someone had grabbed them and yanked hard. Jin-Woo's eyes sharpened. "They're using the tag," Eli whispered, voice trembling. Rush's fingers danced on controls. "They're trying to disrupt his shadow field. They've adapted." Young didn't let fear turn into freezing. "Jin-Woo, go." Jin-Woo moved. The corridor fight was fast and brutal. From Scott's point of view, it looked impossible. One moment, Jin-Woo was near the bridge door. The next, he was halfway down the hall. a shadow soldier taking his place like a swapped piece on a board. A drone lunged at a crew member who had been too slow closing a hatch. Jin-Woo appeared between them and caught the blade with his forearm. The force drove him back one step, only one. He grabbed the drone and slammed it into the wall so hard the metal buckled inward. He crushed its core with a short, clean strike. But drones were already cutting in behind him. They were not just trying to kill, they were trying to divide. A bulkhead slammed down between Jin-Woo and the bridge corridor. Scott cursed. They triggered the doors. Young's eyes widened. Rush! Rush's face was tight. I didn't do that. They did. They're accessing systems through breaches. Eli shouted. They're using the ship against us. Jin-Woo stood on the far side of the lowered bulkhead, alone in a tight corridor with drones appearing from two cut holes. Young's stomach tightened. This was the trap. Jin-Woo's shadows tried to spread wider, but the pulse tool hit again. The shadows flickered and thinned. Not gone, but less stable. The drones rushed in. Jin-Woo didn't panic. He didn't shout. He adjusted. He used fewer shadows, more movement, more precision. He let one drone swing, then stepped inside its reach and hit its core. He ducked under another and tore its arm off like it was a metal branch. Sparks sprayed across the wall. Still, the drones kept coming. They didn't care about losing bodies. They cared about time. Scott slammed his fist against the bulkhead controls. Open! Open! Rush barked. It's locked out! Young's mind raced. Manual override? Eli shook his head, voice high. Not from here. Ray's voice came over the radio, strained. Colonel, civilians are moving, but we have drones cutting toward the hab route. They're aiming for people. Young felt his chest go tight. Hold them. Get everyone behind sealed doors. Ray answered. We're trying. Young looked at the bulkhead again. Jin-Woo was still fighting, still calm, but Young could see the pattern now. The drones weren't trying to win a straight fight. They were trying to keep Jin-Woo busy, while other units went for civilians and ship systems. A classic tactic. And it was working. Young made a harsh decision. Rush, can you route me control of doors? Rush snapped. This ship doesn't work like... Young grabbed the back of Rush's chair and leaned close. If you can do anything, do it now. Rush's eyes flashed. Fine. His fingers moved fast. The console lights flared. Symbols danced. Then, something else happened. The bridge lights dimmed slightly. A new line of ancient symbols appeared on the main display, different from Rush's commands. Eli stared. That's not you, right? Rush's face went pale. No. Young felt the hair rise on his arms. What is it? Jin-Woo's voice came over the radio, low and steady even mid-fight. The ship is speaking. Rush swallowed. That's impossible. Eli whispered. It's destiny. It's reacting again. The symbols shifted into a pattern that repeated, like a request. Then, in the sound system, a voice came through. Not a human voice, not emotional, not angry. Simple, clean, ancient. Jin-Woo heard it in his head more than his ears. Anomaly detected. Integration offered. Control path available. Young froze. Did you hear that? Rush's eyes were wide. Yes. Eli looked like he might pass out. That's the ship offering him something. Jin-Woo's breathing stayed controlled. He crushed another drone and stepped back, listening. Integration offered. Result, maximum survival. Cost, command override. Jin-Woo understood enough. If he accepted, the ship would give him access. Not just doors, not just cameras. Control. The kind of control that made choices for other people. The kind of control that could make the crew safe by removing their freedom. For a fraction of a second, Jin-Woo saw it. No more panic in the halls. No more civilians crying in the dark. No more Rush grabbing for power. No more Young making hard calls that hurt. Jin-Woo could become the ship's hand. He could become its king. And he could win. His shadows trembled. Not from the drones, but from the weight of that choice. Young's voice came through, tight. Jin-Woo, don't. Rush's voice cut in, urgent and hungry. Take it. If it gives you control, we can end this. Jin-Woo didn't answer right away. Another pulse hit the floor. Shadows flickered. A drone rushed him with a tool in its hand, trying to stab his shadow again. Jin-Woo caught it mid-run. He crushed the tool in his fist, then slammed the drone's head into the wall until it broke. Then he spoke into the radio, voice flat and clear. I will not control them. The ship's voice repeated, calm as space. Integration offered. Jin-Woo answered again, stronger. No. The offer didn't vanish. It shifted. Limited link available. Result? Path guidance. No command override. Young exhaled hard. What does that mean? Eli swallowed. It's like, it'll help him move, show him where breaches are, but not let him control us. Rush's face twisted, furious. That's not enough. Young snapped. It's enough if it keeps us alive. Jin-Woo made his choice. Limited link, he said. The ship responded instantly. The corridor lights ahead of Jin-Woo flickered in a pattern, guiding him. Panels opened and sealed in fast sequence, not locking him in, but funneling drones away from civilians. The drones reacted like they felt it. They shifted their formation, trying to cut new holes. But destiny was now moving with Jin-Woo, not against him. Jin-Woo sprinted, not casually now, but with purpose, following the ship's guidance through maintenance shafts and side corridors. He appeared where the hab route was under attack. Ray was there, backed into a corner with a group of civilians behind her. Greer and Scott were holding a narrow corridor with rifles that barely mattered. A drone blade cut Greer's shoulder. Greer swore and staggered. Ray's eyes were wide, but her voice stayed strong. Stay behind me! A drone lunged for a child. Jin-Woo arrived like a shadow snapping into place. He caught the drone and threw it into the ceiling. It crashed down, broken. His shadow soldiers poured into the corridor like a wave, not endless, not out of control, but exact. They formed a wall between drones and civilians. Jin-Woo's voice stayed quiet. Move them! Ray didn't hesitate. Now, go! Civilians ran down the corridor behind the shadow wall. Greer stared at Jin-Woo, breathing hard. You could have taken control of the ship, he rasped. Jin-Woo didn't look at him. I don't cage people. Greer blinked like the answer punched him harder than any drone. The drones pressed in again, more aggressive now, trying to overwhelm the shadows with numbers. Jin-Woo didn't try to match numbers with numbers. He changed the shape of the fight. He switched with a shadow soldier behind the drone group, then struck from the back, crushing cores, ripping legs out, turning their tight formation into a mess. Shadow soldiers pinned drones in place so Jin-Woo could finish them quickly. Within minutes, the corridor was littered with broken machines. But the fight wasn't done. Rush's voice came over the radio, strained. Colonel, they're cutting toward life support. If they breach the main conduit... Young's voice was hard. Jin-Woo, can you reach it? Jin-Woo closed his eyes for one brief second and felt the ship's guidance like a map in his bones. Yes, he said. He ran. This time, Young saw it from far away through a camera feed. Jin-Woo moved through destiny like he belonged to its corridors. Doors opened as he approached. Hatches sealed behind him, not trapping him. Protecting people. The drones tried to adjust, cutting new holes to intercept him. But destiny shifted again, forcing them into narrower spaces. Jin-Woo met them there. The fight near the life support conduit was the hardest. The drones weren't just blades now. They carried pulse tools. They hit the floor with waves that made shadows flicker and drop. Jin-Woo's army thinned. He took more hits, not crippling, not slowing him like a normal man, but enough to remind everyone watching that even a monster hunter could be pressured by strategy. Jin-Woo didn't back off. He stepped into the pulse, took the disruption, and kept moving. He grabbed a drone by the torso and used it like a shield against another drone's blade. He crushed both cores with one brutal twist. Then the last drone tried to run, not away, toward the conduit. It wanted to cut the line and kill the ship. Jin-Woo switched with a shadow in front of it and caught it. He crushed it against the conduit wall, then lowered his hand slowly, breathing controlled. The alarms began to fade. One by one, the red breach marks blinked out on the bridge screens as teams sealed corridors and Destiny's systems stabilized. Young stood on the bridge, staring at the displays like he couldn't believe it. Eli was shaking, hands on his knees, trying not to throw up. Rush sat very still, jaw clenched so hard his face looked tight. When Jin-Woo finally returned to the bridge, he looked the same as always. Calm, tired, dangerous. Young stepped forward. "You heard the ship?" Jin-Woo nodded. "Yes." Young kept his voice steady. "You refused the full offer." Jin-Woo's gaze didn't waver. "Yes." Rush snapped. "You should have taken it." Silence hit like a slap. Everyone on the bridge turned toward Rush. Young's voice went low. "Watch yourself." Rush stood, eyes blazing. "Colonel, you don't understand what we just turned down. Full control could have ended the drones forever. We could have secured the ship. We could have become prisoners," Ray said from the doorway, voice sharp. She had arrived during the argument, face still pale but controlled. Prisoners of safety. Rush's eyes flashed. "Safety is the point." Jin-Woo looked at Rush calmly. "You don't want safety. You want certainty." Rush's hands shook. "Of course I do." Jin-Woo's voice stayed flat. "Certainty makes you dangerous." Rush stared at him like he wanted to hate him, but couldn't find a clean reason. Young stepped between them. "This ends now." He looked at Jin-Woo. "You made a choice that protected people and kept them free. That matters." Jin-Woo nodded once. "Good." Young exhaled slowly. "Here's the new rule. You can keep the limited link when we are under attack. You do not take more than that. You do not become the ship." Jin-Woo's eyes met his. "I won't." Young turned to Rush. "And you stop trying to force it." Rush's mouth tightened. "You can't order me to stop thinking." Young's voice hardened. "I can order you to stop acting like you own people." Rush looked away, furious and trapped. It wasn't a happy ending. It was survival. That night, people slept a little deeper. Not because the danger was gone, but because they had seen something true. Jin-Woo had power that could have swallowed them, and he chose not to. Days later, the paper on the mess wall appeared again. Greer had ripped it down twice. It came back twice. This time, it had a new line written under the list. Note: Guard does not need brakes. Do not ask why. Greer stared at it for a long moment, then walked away muttering, "I hate this ship." Eli whispered to the paper like it could hear him. Progress. The observation window became Jin-Woo's quiet place. Not because it was peaceful, because it was honest. Space did not care about fear or politics. It did not care about labels or plans. It just was. Jin-Woo stood there alone, watching stars slide across the dark. He didn't bring an army. He brought one shadow, the same one Eli called guard. It stood 2 steps behind him, silent and still. Eli approached slowly, careful not to startle a man who had crushed machines like toys. He stopped at a safe distance and tried to keep his voice light. "So, do you ever sleep?" Jin-Woo didn't look away from the stars. "I rest." Eli nodded like that made perfect sense. "Cool. Same. Totally same." A quiet pause sat between them. Eli glanced at guard, then back at Jin-Woo. "I added, 2 more labels." Jin-Woo finally looked at him. "Why?" Eli shrugged, small and honest. "Because people stopped shaking when they see them. It helps." Jin-Woo's expression stayed mostly neutral, but his eyes softened slightly. "Do what you want." Eli smiled, relieved. Thank you. He leaned on the railing and stared out too. His voice dropped. I used to think the scariest thing was being far from home, but now I think the scariest thing is not knowing what we're becoming. Jin-Woo watched the stars move. You're becoming survivors, he said. Eli swallowed. And you? Jin-Woo's fingers flexed once at his side, slow and controlled. He thought about the ship's offer. Control. Certainty. A cage made of safety. He thought about the crew, huddled in the hab after the first breach, crying and shaking. He thought about Young forcing order into panic. He thought about Ray standing between fear and cruelty. He thought about Rush, hungry for answers, and how hunger could turn into something sharp. I'm still me, Jin-Woo said. Eli nodded slowly. That's good. Behind them, Destiny hummed. Steady now, like it was listening. The ship had changed too. Corridors had new scars where drones cut through. Some doors had manual locks now, installed by exhausted hands. Some hallways had simple signs taped up, written in marker. Safe zone or no entry. And in many of those halls, shadows stood quietly, not as rulers, but as guards. On the bridge, Rush still watched Jin-Woo like a math problem he couldn't solve. Young still watched him like a storm he had to plan around. Ray watched him like a person who mattered. Greer watched him like a weapon that had chosen not to fire. The ship kept moving. Ahead, the signal was still out there, and somewhere in the dark, the drones were still alive. They had not stopped. They were learning again. Jin-Woo turned from the window at last. Eli looked up. You feel it? Jin-Woo nodded. The call. Eli's voice was soft. Do you think it's a trap? Jin-Woo didn't pretend certainty. Maybe. Eli swallowed. And we're still going. Jin-Woo's eyes were steady. Yes. He walked toward the corridor, guard following like a shadow of a shadow. Eli stayed at the window a moment longer, watching him go, feeling smaller and safer at the same time. Then Eli whispered to the empty air, like he was saying it to the ship, to the stars, to fear itself. Okay, he said, we keep going.